History holds the answers, or does it? From forgotten maps to ancient secrets buried in plain sight, the world's greatest mysteries remain unsolved, and the truth lies hidden, waiting for you to uncover it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Histories, Mysteries, and Conspiracies. Season 2, Unraveling the Unknown. Where the past isn't just a story, it's a puzzle. Are you ready to piece it together? The belief in a supernatural source of evil is not necessary. Men alone are quite capable of every wickedness. Joseph Conrad. The Devil's Greatest Trick. America was not new to moral panics. The Salem witch trials of 1692 is a great example of an early moral panic in the history of America. The Red Scare of 1919 and then again in the 1940s and 1950s, where Americans feared communism and socialism. The Prohibition era was brought forth by the temperance movement. Then again, with the war on drugs of the 1970s. However, in the late 20th century, a wave of terror swept through communities across America. This is the story of the Satanic Panic. The history. Between the 1960s and 1970s, there were many depictions of Satan and the occult throughout the broader secular segment of American pop culture. Arguably, the most iconic portrayal of Satan in the public's imagination was Anton LaVey, who founded the Church of Satan in San Francisco in 1966 and published the Satanic Bible in 1969. Even the biggest rock and roll acts of the late 1960s, such as the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, incorporated occult imagery in their album covers and songs. The Beatles portrayed infamous occultist Aleister Crowley on the cover of their 1967 album. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and the Rolling Stones came out with their hit single, Sympathy for the Devil, a year later. The most notable depiction of the occult in film was Roman Polanski's 1968 Rosemary's Baby, which tells the story of a young actress whose life is unknowingly influenced by the workings of a satanic cult. Following the success of Rosemary's Baby was the adaptation of William Peter Blatty's 1971 possession story, The Exorcist, in 1973. Although Americans recognized Satan and the occult as depicted in numerous mediums, the Tate LaBianca murders in 1969 and the Jonestown Massacre in 1978 radically changed how the religious publicly perceived the occult, witchcraft, and Satan. In the 1970s, 90% of Americans identified as Christians. Television coupled with Christianity saw the rise of the televangelists. The fear. The terror was the fear of demons or the devil, regardless of whether the fear was warranted or not. It began with headlines: stranger danger, ritual abuse, secret cults. Panic took hold in the 1980s, fueled by a rising moral crusade and sensational media. The panic was characterized by the belief that satanic cults were operating in communities, engaging in ritualistic abuse and kidnapping or harming children. It was not just the news agencies pushing this bizarre phenomenon. Law enforcement agencies began receiving numerous reports about clandestine cults that were purportedly abusing children in rituals dedicated to Satan. The core of the panic involved claims of satanic ritual abuse, including physical, sexual, and psychological abuse. The term Satanic Ritual Abuse was first coined in 1980 in a book called Michelle Remembers, which was written by psychiatrist Lawrence Pazder and his patient Michelle Smith. Many accusations were based on recovered memories of abuse, often triggered through therapy techniques like hypnosis. The panic tapped into existing fears about evil and the supernatural, leading to widespread moral outrage and fear. The panic led to numerous investigations and trials, often resulting in wrongful convictions or lengthy and expensive legal battles. The charges. In 1983, accusations were made about satanic ritual abuse occurring with a preschool in California. It was believed that secret tunnels underneath the McMartin preschool had allowed Satanists to gain access. Supposedly, the teachers of the school were in on the deception. After 2 trials and countless media reports covering this story, all the defendants were cleared of any wrongdoings. In 1985, the formation of BAD, Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, a group that claimed role-playing games were recruitment tools for satanic cult. This also included heavy metal music and television. Dozens of people, teachers, babysitters, and even teens playing D&D found their lives destroyed by accusations that often had no evidence behind them. No place in America is beyond the reach of devil worshippers, Geraldo repeatedly warns his audience. Geraldo Rivera was just one of many talk shows sensationalizing satanic panic. He hosted a show called Devil Worship, which generated millions of viewers. By the 1990, Judas Priest trial was a high-profile case during the satanic panic of the 1980s, fueled by concerns that heavy metal music contained subliminal messages encouraging suicide. The case was dismissed with the finding that any subliminal messages within the recording, should they actually exist, were not responsible for the suicides. In the 1990s, psychologist D. Corydon Hammond publicized a detailed theory of ritual abuse drawn from hypnotherapy sessions with his patients, alleging they were victims of a worldwide conspiracy of organized, secretive clandestine cells who used torture, mind control, and ritual abuse to create alternative personalities that could be activated with code words. The victims were allegedly trained as assassins, prostitutes, drug traffickers, and child sex workers to create child pornography. Hammond claimed his patients had revealed the conspiracy was masterminded by a Jewish doctor in Nazi Germany, but who now worked for the Central Intelligence Agency with a goal of worldwide domination by a satanic cult. The cult was allegedly composed of respectable, powerful members of society who used the funds generated to further their agenda. Missing memories among the victims and absence of evidence was cited as evidence of the power and effectiveness of this cult in furthering its agenda. Hammond's claims gained considerable attention, due in part to his prominence in the field of hypnosis and psychotherapy. The findings. FBI Special Agent and Profiler Ken Lanning investigated hundreds of satanic ritual abuse claims and was unable to find any corroborating evidence of widespread or organized satanic abuse. In 1992, he wrote a report concluding that most allegations were based on misinformation, moral panic, or mental illness. The skepticism. It is easy to write off the satanic panic as mass hysteria, but what if the fear wasn't entirely irrational? It wasn't just therapists and fringe authors making claims. One of the most shocking voices came from Ted Gunderson, a former senior FBI agent who had once led the Los Angeles field office. After retiring, Gunderson began independently investigating claims of child trafficking, ritual abuse, and government corruption. What he uncovered, or claimed to, was chilling. He alleged the existence of underground networks of satanic pedophile rings operating at the highest levels of power, involving politicians, intelligence agencies, and even military officials. Gunderson pointed to specific cases, including the McMartin preschool, Boys Town, and the Franklin cover-up, as evidence of a coordinated system of abuse and cover-up. Gunderson's work in the McMartin preschool case evolved into him obtaining an archaeologist to help determine that tunnels potentially exist underneath the preschool. He spoke at conferences, on television, and in independent documentaries, warning the public that this wasn't just hysteria, this was a system. "This country is being run by criminals," he once said in a public speech. "There is a secret shadow government that manipulates every institution, and they are deeply involved in child trafficking and satanic ritual abuse." Critics dismissed him as a conspiracy theorist, but supporters pointed to his FBI background and his willingness to risk his reputation. Was he delusional or dangerously close to the truth? Skeptics point out that many accusations were based on so-called recovered memories, often drawn out under hypnosis, a method now widely discredited for creating false recollections. They argue there was no physical evidence of secret tunnels, satanic symbols, or ritual altars in the McMartin case or others like it. No arrests of national cult leaders. No documented proof of widespread conspiracies. No bodies. No video. No smoking gun. And yet, why did so many children tell eerily similar stories across different cities, states, and even countries? Were they coached, or were they telling the truth in a language adults didn't want to understand? Why did law enforcement, psychologists, pastors, and journalists believe, at least for a time, that something very real was happening? And if it wasn't real, then how did a moral panic spread so quickly, so thoroughly, and so violently without help? Could something darker have been hiding in plain sight, using the panic as a smokescreen? Maybe the details were too unbelievable to believe. Or maybe that was the point. They say the devil is in the details, and sometimes when we look too close, we forget to ask who placed those details there in the first place. They say the devil's greatest trick was convincing the world he didn't exist. But what if his second greatest was making us laugh off those who say he does? They say it was all mass hysteria, media-driven madness. But if the devil thrives in chaos, then wasn't the panic itself the perfect ritual? Bravo. Select an option for more.